Welcome. Happy Saturday to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here today live. Yes, live. The Jaybefaunt channel is available on all major podcast platforms, so go ahead and subscribe there. Also part of Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can see me there on Sundays and Thursdays. If you have not already, please go ahead and give a like to the stream. That pushes me out into the algorithm. So thank you so very much there. Also, if you have not already, you guys can go to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com. That alerts me to all that alerts you to all email notifications whenever I go live, upload clips, or write any articles. You have that there. And yes, this is going to be a live reading. I cannot wait to get into this. This is going to be the final reading for this book. I am extremely excited. This has been a great run, and we'll talk about the next book that I'll be getting into after that. But I just want to say, because this is live, I'm going to say hello to people that are already saying hello in the chat. So if you are here on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rockfin, or Rumble, go ahead and give your salutations. I would love to hear from you. If you would like to say hello, good to see all of you here on this Saturday afternoon. Yes, we're live. So we have Miguel coming in saying, peace, good to see you in here, Miguel. Nice to have a friendly face and a usual face in here as well. Good to see you here. So what are we going to talk about today? So we're doing the final reading. Laziness does not exist live. One of the things that is interesting about getting into this book was that one of the things that captivated me was the title. And I always thought that because it's somebody who is disabled and somebody that deals with a chronic illness that is, the disability is in a time disability as well as an energy disability, you tend to judge yourself very harshly by the metrics of what this system puts you by. And so for people like myself, it has been a harrowing journey of me trying to prove myself so that I don't come off as this lazy schlub. Add to the fact that I'm also a fluffy individual, and that because you're of the more fuller type of figure, those of us who are, people, then you're automatically thought of as, oh, well, your body's not in perfect shape, so therefore you're lazy. And then on top of it, being a kidney dialysis patient, going to dialysis 3 times a week, having extreme fatigue throughout the week, I had to prove myself that I wasn't lazy. This book has been one of the most cathartic books for me. And especially it helps me to not only recognize my limitations, but also recognize the limitations in other human beings, and to not see them the way that this system wants me to see them. You are more than just what you produce. And that's very reflective throughout the book. So one of the things I want to do is give a huge shout out and thank you to Dr. Devon Price for the research as well as the anecdotal experiences that are within this book. Not only did I thoroughly enjoy it, but it was also a learning experience for me. And it was a growing experience for me. So I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoyed this book so much. So I just want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Dr. Devon Price. If Dr. Devon Price could ever come on this channel to talk about his experience in writing the book, his experience in how it has taught him and what it has helped him, in writing this book, I would love to have him on to discuss this, because I think this has helped me in a significant way, and I hope it's helped you in a significant way as well too. So we're going to be finishing off in the book. So we are going to start on page 205. It is conclusion. Compassion kills the laziness lie. This is going to be the wusa, right? This is going to be that balsam. It's going to be that rubbing that Vicks Vapor Rub on your chest, right? When you're sick, and rubbing it on your back. This is what this part's going to be. And I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did. Hope you guys have your tea ready. I got my tea ready. I put a little bit extra ginger in this just for some kick. Let's get going. I started this book with the example of a parent telling their child that homeless people are lazy and don't deserve generosity. Beginning there was a deliberate choice. Lots of people have been taught to see homelessness folks as the epitome of laziness, and to believe that laziness is the root cause of homeless people's suffering. This tendency to blame people for their own pain is comforting in a twisted way. It allows us to close up our hearts and ignore the suffering of others. This same tendency also keeps us running endlessly on the hamster wheel of hyperproductivity. And some people may not like this, but it is what it is. One of the things that we're also taught in this society, especially in regards to white supremacy, is that Black people are lazy. Let's be real. Let's call a thing, right? We're taught that Black people are lazy, right? You hear the phrase welfare queens, or when somebody says, oh, you're on welfare, or you're collecting welfare checks, or what have you. It's basically to signify that that person does not produce, that that person is lazy, right? And what ends up happening is it's reflected upon us as a people. So what ends up happening is we become the scapegoat because of this notion that because we don't produce, we're automatically lazy. It's the same thing for homeless people, that they don't produce, so therefore they do not have what? Value. Also saying that we do not have what? Value. That you do not add to society. And then the scapegoating goes, well, this is why I pay so many taxes, because we have to fund people like that because they're not willing to work. When in reality, and I'm going to point this out throughout this reading, is that the most people who are signified as actually lazy are the ones that have all the resources and keep it and hoard it to themselves without ever allowing for a system that actually helps and gives the material conditions to everyone. The people who should really be demonized are the greediest ones. They are not the homeless. They are not the people who are the most marginalized in this system. I want you to reflect on that. And we need to stop scapegoating and demonizing the people who have no power or very little power, just like the rest of us. Let's continue. When we view homelessness, unemployed, or impoverished people as victims of their own laziness, Our motivation to work breakingly hard gets stronger than ever. The fear of ending up homeless morphs into the fear of not working hard enough, which in turn makes life an endless slog of pushing ourselves past the brink of judging anyone who doesn't do the same. Lacking compassion for a struggling group of people actually makes it harder for us to be gentle with ourselves. I'm going to read that point again. Lacking compassion for a struggling group of people actually makes it harder for us to be gentle with ourselves. Ooh. Your harshness on your fellow human beings makes it worse on you, make it worse on yourself. Giving grace to others also gives you permission to give grace to yourself. This system does not want you to have grace on others or yourself. This is why they demonize anybody that dares to listen to their mind, their heart, and their body. That's what it is. And then you adopt that same type of mindset, and then you demonize people, anybody that listens to their mind, their heart, and their body, including your own. And that makes you what? More what? Robotic. Because you're listening to their programming and you're not listening to who? Yourself. And then you tell other people, or you influence other people, you influence your kids, you influence your spouse, you influence your siblings, your parents, that they shouldn't listen to their mind, their heart, their body. And then guess what? They suffer what? Burnout. And that burnout influences their mind, their heart, and their body. And then guess what? It's a vicious cycle, right? Then, because their mind, their heart, and their body aren't being listened to, that's when depression sets in. That's when the house gets messy. That's when, maybe the work isn't done as well or as efficiently. Maybe there's more excuses to not want to go to school. Maybe there's strife in different relationships between partners, romantic partners, between friends, between family members, because we're not listening to ourselves. We're going by a capitalist system. Yes, a capitalist system that puts stock on how much you produce over everything else. And it literally affects our very lives. This is why it is important to not listen to that laziness lie that Dr. Devon Price eloquently puts into this book. Let's continue. Fighting the laziness lie can't stop at just encouraging people with full-time jobs to relax a bit and take more breaks. The compulsion towards overwork is a key component of the laziness lie, and resisting it is important. But we have to go so much further than that. Our culture's hatred of the lazy is all-encompassing. It bleeds into how we view relationships, child rearing, body size, barriers to voting, and so much more. I'm going to go back to how we view relationships. Hey, listen, men, when we ask women, oh, what do you bring to the table? What does that mean? When we ask women, when we ask men, and I'm talking about people in heterosexual relationships, when we ask men, what do you bring to the table? What are we talking about? Are we talking about how much they are able to produce? Is how much we value our romantic partners. Is that placed in how much they produce? Something to think about, right? Something to think about as you are, some of y'all are in the dating pool looking for a partner. Why are some people demotivated? Why are some people lacking ambition? Is it just because they have some fundamental flaw within them? And that means that you just throw them by the wayside? Or is there something issue underlying that just is keeping them from being the best version of themselves? The laziness lie teaches us that people who do more are worth more. When we buy into that method of assigning value to people, we doom ourselves to a life of insecurity and judgment. The remedy for all this is boundless compassion. If we really want to dismantle the laziness lie and set ourselves free, we have to question every judgment of laziness society has taught us to make, including those that are very challenging for us to unlearn. If you're entitled to moments of rest, of imperfection, of laziness and sloth, so are homeless people and people with depression and people who are addicted to drugs. I'm going to repeat that sentence again because I don't think it went clearly enough. If you're entitled to moments of rest, of imperfection, of laziness and sloth, then so are homeless people and people with depression and people who are addicted to drugs. Are we judging people because they're going through something and yet we give ourselves more grace because we're not doing the exact same thing? Why are homeless people homeless? I talked about it many times on this channel. You guys can go back and take a look at it. By the way, if people are homeless, it's not their fault. It's not their fault that there exists a system where housing is completely commodified and paywalled so that you do not have a home. So being homeless is not the fault of the person. It is a systemic issue, not an individual problem. People with depression. People with depression, some people have depression because of trauma, chemical imbalances. And a lot of us also have depression dealing with a system that places our productivity above all else. We have to deal with so much in regards to our material conditions that adds to the strife that we feel, and that adds to our depression. Why are people addicted to drugs? Why do we have substance abuse? Why is it so apparent and glaring in this country, people who have substance abuse issues? And I'm not just talking about those substance abuses that you typically think of. I'm also talking about the substance abuse to sugar and to caffeine and to shopping and just because you have an addiction to shopping doesn't mean you're rich. You could be addicted to shopping by just going to thrift stores because that's the cheapest route you can go. You could be addicted to shopping and going to Five Below or going to the Dollar Tree. See? Why do people suffer from these addictions? Trauma is a gateway drug. So this is why we have to talk about this. If your life has value, no matter how productive you are, so does every other human life. Beautifully said. It's hard to unlearn this stuff. For me, I think it will be a lifelong project. As much as I encourage my friends, peers, and students to exercise empathy and tolerance, I often struggle with it myself. I'm prone to getting infuriated and judgy the second a slow walking person blocks my path on the sidewalk. I get impatient when a coworker is late to responding to an email or a calendar invite. When a friend of mine complains about needing to make a change in their life and doesn't actually go ahead and do it, I'm baffled by their inertia. I ought to know better than to have these reactions, yet I still do. I really hate this side of myself. It's normal to have these disapproving thoughts. The laziness lie has indoctrinated us into having them. These knee-jerk reactions are reflections of the society we are raised in and the biases that were ingrained in us. Thinking this way doesn't make me a bad person. If you're similarly short-fused, you're not a bad person either. What matters most is how we deal with these feelings. We always have the option of reflecting on where our negative thoughts came from, challenging them, and releasing them when they're no longer doing us any good. There are a lot of things I do to keep the laziness lie at bay and to quiet my mind's constant stream of shame and criticism. These steps are rooted in research from social psychology, the field that has shaped me as a thinker and a writer. If you're still struggling to unpack the laziness lie and the influence it's had on your life, and I think most of us are, these steps are a great place to start. I find that they really help me to be more gentle with other people and to have more compassion for myself. So, we're going to go into the tips that Dr. Price puts in here. Take a sip of some tea. Good stuff. But I hope you guys are commenting about what you think about so far. See why I read this book? Let's continue. So, the first tip is practice compassionate curiosity. We often dismiss people as lazy when we can't understand the reasons for their inertia or inaction. If someone's behavior makes no sense to us, passing judgment on it feels very natural. He won't apply to jobs. He sits on the couch all day and he hasn't washed the dishes. He must be lazy. Labeling someone as lazy can turn a complex, challenging situation into an open and shut case. Instead of dismissing a person so quickly, it's much more effective to get curious. Every person has reasons for why they act the way they do. Even if someone's inaction strikes us as totally self-defeating or pointless within the context of that person's life, it makes sense. So when you find yourself inclined towards judgment, try reflecting on why a person might do the things they do. Here are some questions to ask yourself. 1, what need are they trying to meet by acting this way? 2, what challenges or barriers are getting in the way of their making a change? 3, what hidden struggles, such as physical disability, mental illness, trauma, or oppression, might explain the difficulties they're facing? 4, who might have taught them to act this way? 5, do they have other options? Are those options really attainable for them? 6, what kind of help might they need. Research shows that exercising curiosity is a fantastic way to unlearn our prejudices and biases. I'm going to read that again. Come closer to the screen. Research shows that exercising curiosity in a fantastic way is a fantastic way to unlearn our prejudice and biases. If you don't know somebody of a particular marginalized group, then get to know them. This will in turn break the biases. This in turn will get you able to know the type of people they are so that you don't start judging them over a generalization of the group. So, do people accuse you of being kind of racist? Maybe, just maybe, you might need to get to know some more black people and brown people. Do people look at you and say, you're acting kind of ableist? Maybe, just maybe, you better get to know some disabled people. Do people tag you or peg you as somebody that may be a little transphobic? Then maybe, just maybe, you might want to try to get to know some trans people. Do people say you're homophobic? Maybe, just maybe, you might need to try to get to know some gay people. Hi, I'm one right in front of you. Are people saying that you might be a little misogynistic? Maybe, just maybe, you might need to talk and listen to some women more. If you're xenophobic, talk to some people who are immigrants. And if people say that you do not have enough compassion for people who are workers, people who are on the bottom of the economic hierarchy, if people say that you are out of place in your thoughts about people who are poor, maybe, just maybe, you need to get to know some poor people and get their thoughts and experiences on life. Don't be so dejected. You can change this. All it takes is a little effort. Research shows that exercising curiosity is a fantastic way to unlearn our prejudices and biases. And the more we learn about someone's circumstances, the more compassion we have for them and their apparent shortcomings. I put this principle into practice with my students more times than I can count. If a student is missing assignments, showing up late, and failing to respond to my emails, my initial reaction might be to write them off as lazy or unmotivated. I could give up on them right then and there, but it always works out better if I get curious instead. When I check in with a student to see if they're doing okay, I often find that their apparent laziness is actually caused by a ton of turmoil and difficulty in their life. When a student trusts me enough to share this information, it gives me an opportunity to offer them help. These moments of connection and collaborative problem solving are some of the most meaningful experiences I get to have as an educator. And if I remain judgmental and committed to the laziness lie, they never would have happened. You know, it's interesting. You guys ever see those that show Hoarders Buried Alive? Where you have a lot of people who hoard a lot of stuff. What does the expert, the professional who comes to help the hoarder do? What do they do? Do they just throw everything out themselves while the person who hoards stuff, they just stand there, as a bystander while watching somebody throw all their stuff away? No. They put it into the hands of the person who hoards, and they find out their backstory. Why do they do what they do? Why are they holding on to so much? There's always a story behind it. There's always trauma behind it, right? And then who's involved with throwing the things that they don't need away? Isn't it the person who actually did the hoarding themselves? So they allow their curiosity to show them why they're doing what they're doing. And then they take steps to help that person into relieving that issue, that growing, that 800-pound gorilla in the room. They help them to alleviate that and throw it away. You can do the same thing with other issues in other people's lives. If you see there's an issue, let your curiosity take over and see why they're doing what they're doing. And not in a patronizing way, in a kind and loving way. That also means monitoring how we say things. Sometimes it's not just what you say, it's also how you say it. Kindness and compassion go a long way. Now, continuing on, I have a close friend who struggles with addiction, and I find myself applying the same thinking to his situation. He has a really hard time falling asleep at night and has experienced suicidal thoughts and urges his whole adult life. Sometimes his best option is to get so drunk that he falls asleep and can't harm himself. It's not a pretty solution, but it makes complete sense to me. I've encouraged him to reduce his drinking, and I cheered him on when he started seeing an addiction counselor. But I don't blame him for choosing to drink instead of ending his life. I'm glad he's alive to fight another day, and I respect his decision-making process. I also find these questions useful for understanding my own behavior. I used to vape nicotine, and for years I felt embarrassed about how wasteful and stupid the habit was. Then I asked myself, what situations make me vape more? What do I enjoy about doing it? I realized pretty quickly that I used vaping as an appetite suppressant and to give myself a little jolt of extra energy, the same way I might use nicotine. Once I realized this, it was pretty easy to replace vaping with eating snacks and drinking more coffee. Shame would have never gotten my behavior to change. Compassion and curiosity were what I needed. Now, going on to the next tip. Look to the broader context. Sometimes we don't have the chance to ask a person about their situation and why they behave the way they do it. Even in the absence of that information, we could practice compassion by looking at the big picture factors that can limit them or make their life hard. It is much easier to accept a person's actions or inaction when we recognize that there are outside factors that influence how they behave. Sometimes the outside factor is something as simple as they're having a bad day. Other times that the external factor is something massive and systemic like classism or racism. As I've already outlined in this book, fighting against the laziness lie is particularly difficult when a person has been pushed by society's margins. People of color and women are often expected to be unfailingly productive and uncomplaining, above and beyond the level of white men are. People with mental illnesses and physical disabilities are shamed for having needs and limitations. Looking for after their health can be viewed by other people as an indulgence. Even people like my Appalachian relatives have had to struggle against this. Just think of how often movies and TV shows play to the stereotype of the lazy, ignorant hillbilly. Let's stop there for a second. People of color and women are often expected to be unfailingly productive and uncomplaining, above and beyond the level white men are. I'm going to say something, and some people may scoff, some people may be like, oh, I don't think that's true. But Black people who are watching right now, how many times more do we have to work in order to achieve the same level of recognition or results of white people? especially white men. We have to work 10 times as hard, right? We all the black people just nodded their head and said, yeah, 10 times as hard. Why? How many women have to work many times as hard, especially black women, many times as hard, and just to be able to get to the same place that white men are? Those of us who are disabled, right? We have to focus on our health even more. And so therefore, it makes us less what? Productive. So therefore, some people look at us and go, well, at least you get to focus on your health. And it's like, for us, in itself, some people, their health, their chronic conditions are so bad that it is a job just to take a shower. Imagine jumping into the shower, and by the time you're done, you felt like you just did an 8-hour shift. You can't imagine it, can you? Why? Because you're healthy. That's why. Or your health is not reflective in that type of amount of fatigue. So therefore, you don't understand it. But if you actually talk to people and get curious and listen to them, you'll realize that some people have that issue. So why are we so quick to judge? People don't know I'm on dialysis until I tell them, because they think that I'm lazy because, oh, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, JB is not doing a damn thing. He just sleeps all day. Meanwhile, I'm in need of a kidney. Get curious. Respectfully, but get curious. And be kind. The laziness lie encourages us to label people and pass judgment on them, rather than looking at the broader context they've been placed in. By zooming out and examining the social context, we can get better at seeing them as complex, dynamic people instead of hollow stereotypes. This helps us to stop expecting flawless behavior and productivity from them and to start seeing them as people who are worthwhile no matter how much they do or don't produce. It is also useful to apply big picture thinking to our own struggles. If I fail to meet my goals for the day, I could beat myself up for being lazy, a lazy failure. Or I could ponder what else is happening in my life that might be slowing me down. Maybe I had trouble sleeping the night before, or I'm about to come down with a cold and I just don't realize it yet. Oh, sometimes we have something inside that we just don't realize that's slowing us down. Maybe I just learned that my employer provided health insurance won't cover any gender transition related expenses. And so I'm feeling really excluded and undervalued. These things affect me. They probably affect you too. I'm not a flawlessly productive robot, nor is anybody else. In fact, it is a good thing to be sensitive to the situation I'm in and to react to setbacks and disappointments. Remember Xochitl Sandoval's observation that we all need time to mourn. Having emotional reactions to one's circumstances is a sign that you're adaptable and alive. It's only because of the pervasiveness of the laziness lie that we see natural reactions as weakness. People just don't mourn when someone dies or when an animal dies. Sometimes we mourn other losses too. Sometimes we mourn other circumstances. And sometimes we have to give ourselves the grace and space to be able to do that too. We can't just limit it to the death of a loved one or the sickness of a loved one or the loss of a loved one who hasn't died, but they're gone away. Those are points where we mourn, yes, but there's other circumstances where we mourn too. But those may be slightly lesser on the hierarchy of mourning, but we still need to mourn nonetheless. Are we giving ourselves space for that? Are we giving others space for that? Next tip, stop associating productivity with goodness. Ooh. Some of you Christians may need to step in for this one. After you've gotten into the habit of reflecting on why people act the way they act, you can take it even further. Question your root assumptions about which actions are better than others and why. Curiosity about a person's context helps us to be understanding when their actions strike us as ineffective or bad, and that's a great place to start. But it's even more radically compassionate to stop labeling behaviors as bad at all. The laziness lie is rooted in capitalism and a particularly harsh breed of Christianity. And it preaches that salvation comes from hard work. That belief system carries over into how we talk about productivity, effort, and achievement. It teaches us to view idle time as a waste and to try to constantly keep ourselves occupied. It leads us to assume that there is more virtue in doing something than there is in doing nothing, no matter what that something is. You know what's funny? I used to preach door to door for almost 20 years as a Christian. And one of my favorite scriptures out of the Bible, I can't tell you the chapter and verse or the book, but I remember the scripture. It said, it's better than a handful of rest than 2 handfuls of work. Better is a handful of rest than 2 handfuls of work. What does that mean? That means don't burn yourself out. Even the Bible talks about that. But sometimes you have some people in Christendom that will twist the Bible and try to make it so that, oh, well, you just need to work beyond to the point where you're worn out, to the point where you can't even hardly breathe anymore. That's what they did to my ancestors. That's how they twisted the Bible so that we couldn't rest, so that we work on those cotton, tobacco, and rice plantations, so that we're constantly producing for them without any rest. That's what they did. It's time for us to walk away from that. You don't think that the corporate dictators, the parasitic oligarchs, you don't think that they are not pushing that same doctrine as slave masters onto you as a worker? You don't think that they're not doing that? Oh, my sweet summer child. They are definitely doing that. This is why you got people on TikTok going, I work 60 to 80 hours a week. And look, I'm super productive. And some of us are like, good for you, but not me. No, not good for you, because you're killing yourself on behalf of somebody that's literally extracting your labor and exploiting you. No. What are you doing? You're not a robot. Stop it. And this is how they get us. they make it seem like you're a good person by how many hours above 40 hours a week you work. Hell, even 40 hours a week. Oh, I work a full 40. I'm better than somebody that works 20. What? Even how we insult people, right? Tommy, you ain't got no job, man. Remember that? Especially you're watching Martin. Oh, at least I got a job. Or I make more than you. Black people in the hood. Black people in general. Have we heard that insult? Mm, 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 mm. That belief system carries over into how we talk about productivity, effort, and achievement. It teaches us to view idle time as a waste and to try to constantly keep ourselves occupied. If you got time to lean, you got time to clean. If everything's already done, why do I have to keep cleaning? Why do I have to keep being productive for you? Mm. It leads us to assume that there is more virtue in doing something than there is in doing nothing, no matter what that something is. Whew. This mindset can lead down many dangerous paths. If work is always better than unemployment, then it's better to serve an abusive boss in a corrupt, environmentally damaging industry than it is to quit. If work is always better than unemployment, then it's better to serve an abusive boss in a corrupt, environmentally damaging industry than it is to quit. Oh my goodness. Can you believe it? And this is why they don't want housing as a human right. This is why they don't want healthcare as a human right. This is why they don't want education as a human right. This is why they don't want to have basic food as a human right. This is why they don't want to have clean water as a human right. Because they want you to be able to suffer under abusive, exploitative employers. Because if you have all your basic concrete material needs met, then anybody that is employing you that's abusive, you can tell them to shove it and you'll survive. You can tell them where to shove it. And then guess what? You'll look for something that's actually better, with somebody actually treats you well. That's why this system is the way it is, because it wants to prevent you from actually being good to yourself. See it making sense now? This system tells you to stay with your abuser. And that abuser could be your boss or the company you work for. And then we blame the victim instead of blaming the perpetrator. Oh, baby. Mm-mm-mm. If keeping busy is a sign of virtue, then it is okay to burn through tons of resources, traveling the world and having big, expensive, Instagrammable experiences rather than having time alone at home. If being active is always superior to being passive, then it's more important that we talk and express our opinions to the world than that we listen to the experts who might have something to teach us. What are we always constantly told, especially a lot of us men? We're also constantly told that we have to express our opinions every single time, even if we don't know everything about that particular subject. When in reality, sometimes we just need to shut the F up and listen. But we're constantly told that we have to appeal to our ego, when in reality, we should actually just listen. And a lot of times it's the reverse for women. Because a lot of times, even though they may be an expert in something, they might have 99% of all the information, but that 1% will prevent them from actually voicing anything at all to add to the conversation. When in reality, they have 99% of all the information. Therefore, where we men, we may have 50, 51, 52% of the information, but we feel free to say it with our whole chest and tell everybody what they need to know. And we got to, express our opinion. When reality, just because that person may have a uterus, we feel that they actually do not have as much validity in what they say, even though they actually know more about the subject than we do. Talk about the best person for the job, right? The laziness lie pushes us into unfettered, frantic individualism, leaving no room for reflection, listening, or quiet inward growth. I'm reminded of a quote from the attributed to an Irish statesman, Edmund Burke, that is often shared with children when they first learn about the Holocaust. Quote, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." End quote. It's a powerful statement about the necessity of standing up against evil, and I think a lot of kids connect with the words when they first hear them. Leaders of all stripes call on this quote to justify some of their boldest actions. Doing something is better than doing nothing after all. At the very heart of the quote and its popularity is the laziness lie lurking within it. It says doing nothing is akin to condoning evil. There's a problem with this quote, though. Edmund Burke never appears to have said it. In fact, no one knows where the quote came from. It seems to have been made up, then widely adopted by a variety of political leaders, activists, and nonprofit directors throughout the world. Burke's actual words are far less individualistic. Quote, "When bad men combine, the good must associate, else they will fall, one by one, an unpitied sacrifice and a contemptible struggle." End quote. This is not a statement about how good men must be active and engage in order to fight the evil head on. Rather, it's a call for good people to band together and stand firm against the evil forces attacking them, just like the kids at Columbia, just like the kids at NYU, just like the kids at University of Florida, just like the kids at University of Rochester, just like the kids at USC, just like the kids at Morehouse that are trying to gather right now. See? This quote doesn't praise activity for the sake of activity. It praises community. It suggests that not all battles are good, not all battles for good are direct clashes of power, and that violent, contemptible struggles will fail. Sometimes the best thing good people can do is hunker down, care for one another, and survive. Can I hear a general strike, anybody? Can I hear mutual aid, anybody? In a system where your productivity is paramount, that means the productivity is important to the people who exploit you. So if you stop being productive, who has the power then? Yeah, you. Yeah, point to yourself. Point to me. Yes. I wonder how many times the fake Burke quote has been used to justify bombing an impoverished country, invading independent state, or even forcing marginalized people into prisons or corrective camps. If standing by and doing nothing is the same as permitting evil, then almost any action you take in an attempt to fight evil can be seen as justified, just like what Zionists do. Just like what the United States does and other countries around the world. Are you listening? Hmm. If doing nothing is evil, then doing something is good, even if that something is foolhardy and destructive. I've sometimes counteracted the fake Burke quote by telling people that all that's needed for harm to persist in the world is for evil people to think they're doing good. When productivity is equated with goodness, it becomes hard to tell the difference. The indoctrination of the laziness lie runs deep. Even once we come to realize how unreasonable and dangerous it is, we may find that it still has a hold on us. In order to combat the laziness lie fully, we have to identify the signs of it that linger in our minds and work to slowly uproot them. Here are some indications that you may still be associating productivity with goodness. 1. When you get less done during the day than you anticipated, you feel guilty. 2. You have trouble enjoying your free time. 3. You believe you have to earn the right to a vacation or a break. 4. You take care of your health only in order to remain productive. Ooh, let's read number 4 again. You take care of your health only in order to remain productive. 5, you have having nothing to do makes you feel useless. 6, you find the idea of growing old or becoming disabled to be incredibly depressing. 7, when you say no to someone, you feel compelled to say yes to something else to make up for it. Woo! Throughout this book, I've outlined the various ways in which overexertion is damaging to a person's health, their well-being, and even the quality of their work. While all this is true, saying it over and over again can have an unfortunate implication. It might seem like the purpose of taking care of yourself is just so that you can do better work for longer. If you're still thinking about breaks and rest as a means to an end in this way, you're still letting your productivity define your worth. I'll let that simmer just for a second. When I first wrote the essay that became this book, I got a lot of emails from people who wanted advice on how to boost their productivity. The whole point of this essay was that when people seem lazy, it is usually because they're facing unseen barriers and challenges. Many readers wanted to know how they could go about finding those barriers and challenges in their own lives and exercising them. Time after time, I had to tell these readers that I didn't have advice for how they could overcome their every limit and get more done. I didn't even think they should aspire to be more productive. If they wanted to get more done in one area of their life, they probably have to cut a few other things out. More important, I wanted them to get comfortable with being less productive than society tells them they ought to be. Taking breaks, drawing boundaries, and learning to listen to our internal feelings of laziness are each worthwhile for their own sake, not because they make us better workers. If you really learn to prioritize your health, it's likely that you'll become less productive overall. That's because you were always doing too much from the outset. Oh, 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 oh. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's because you were always doing too much from the outset. Hang on, hang on, hang on. What do we talk about, especially a lot of us on the left? We talk about our productivity. How much has it went up since the 1950s and 60s? Our productivity shot through the roof. And yet, what are we experiencing now? We're more depressed. We're experiencing more substance abuse. Our relationships are failing left and right because we're producing so much and we are leaving ourselves and our families and our friends by the wayside. We are walking away from our humanity for the sake of a bunch of oligarchs. We're walking away from our humanity for the sake of a bunch of parasitic billionaires, wealthy, oppressive class. Less time with our families, less time for our friends, less time for our loved ones. All because we don't want to feel guilty. You've already been working hard. Learning to take care of yourself in a holistic way means accepting that you might never be as prolific as you once were and coming to see that as a good thing. As a result of following the advice in this book, your boredom, I'm sorry, your as a result of following the advice in this book, your bedroom might get messier. Your inbox might start developing a backlog, and people might stop praising you so much for your work ethic. You'll know that you really made progress in unlearning the laziness lie when each of these changes feels comfortable and natural rather than threatening. Of course, no one arrives there in a day. I'm still constantly tempted to evaluate my life in terms of how much I've gotten done. I still find myself judging people who aren't a workaholic achievement hunters. One kind of offbeat thing that helps me detach from this line of thinking is taking time to consider my pet chinchilla dump truck. His chinchilla's name is Dump Truck. Isn't that the cutest thing? Dumps like a truck, truck, truck. That's like what, baby movie, what. All right. Like most pets, Dump Truck has never done a productive thing in his entire life. All he does is eat, sleep, and destroy the various wooden toys I put in his cage. When I see Dump Trunk slumped over and sleep in the middle of the day, I don't feel any disdain over how lazy he's being. I don't think he needs to earn his right to food and rest or playtime. I just love him and find him adorable. His worth to me has absolutely nothing to do with his productivity level or anything he contributes to my household or my life. His worth comes from being beautifully and perfectly alive. If this little animal's life is innately valuable and beautiful no matter what he does or doesn't do, maybe that means my life is innately valuable too. In fact, if I can love Dump Truck just as much when he's doing nothing as when he's doing a lot, then maybe I can care for and appreciate every human regardless of how they spend their time. It's wonderful to realize that all people are deserving of love and comfort, and that this worthiness has nothing to do with their productivity. I don't always remember this, but when I do, I consciously take time to focus on it. It fills me with a feeling of peace. It helps me realize that I don't need to struggle or to punish myself with overcommitments and hard work either. I'm okay just as I am. You're priceless, no matter what you do or don't do in regards to productivity. Remember that. And keep that in mind for everyone else around you. Last tip. Be gentle with yourself. The laziness lie has a far-reaching history, one that is deeply embedded in the legacies of industrialization, imperialism, and slavery. It has permeated almost every piece of media we consume, from the largest blockbuster films to the most intimate seeming YouTube channels. Since we were children, most of us have been told constantly about the value of hard work and the dangers of not being ambitious and driven. This kind of intense cultural programming cannot easily be undone. Unlearning the laziness lie isn't really about trying to scrub every sign of its influence from our minds. No matter how carefully we re-examine our thought patterns and question our old assumptions, its influence will always be there. Over time, though, we can get better at dismissing the parts of ourselves that have been conditioned to letting go of and judging, and start observing with compassion instead. It's ironic, but learning to resist the laziness lie takes a lot of ongoing internal work. Continue to practice self-compassion and gentleness, and know that change doesn't come instantly. The path forward is not linear, and there's no trophy to be won by being the best at fighting at it. You're still learning. You'll never be perfect, and that's okay. You're fine exactly the way you are. So is everyone else. That's Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price. That's it. That's the end. We reached a conclusion. I'm leaving the last word for that book. Did you like the stream? Go ahead and give the stream a like. That pushes me out into the algorithm. I appreciate it so very much, and it means the world to me. Thank you. Now, in addition to, and furthermore, just want to give a shout out to all the patrons on Patreon, Coffee, and anybody that sends me anything through PayPal. Without you guys, I will not be able to do the things that I can do. I would not be able to have this channel. So thank you so very much. Thank you so much. And yes, I appreciate all of your help. My channel is still demonetized, so if you'd like to support the channel, you can support via Patreon or PayPal. And thank you so very much for that. So I'm going to share with you guys the tiers, and then we'll get into the comments, because I know you guys got some things to say. All right, so here are the tiers. JB members, Solidarity, Comrade, Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, and Mega Jaybefaunters. There you have it. Let's go to the comments in the chat. I was so excited for this. This is great. Animairs, I'm gonna get to your comments right here, right now on Rockfin. Man, this book was great. All right, Animairs on Rockfin. Happy Saturday to you, and thank you so very much. Yes, you are beautiful just the way you are too. And Mayor says the system we're living in is designed to make you feel inadequate. And says compassion is key. Also, if you forgive others, you can't forgive others if you can't forgive your. Oh, Anna! If you can't forgive others, you can't forgive yourself. I never met anyone who wasn't addicted to something. Oh yeah. Remember that pipe dream we're sold about automation allowing us to live in a free utopia? Yeah. It says now we all work harder than ever before. When we're working, we're not communing with each other. Oh yes. Meditation is considered doing nothing and so very important because you're self-reflecting. Yes. Yes, we all need to listen more. Oh, thank you so much, Anna. It's so good to see you in the chat. Nice to have you. Let's go to the rest of the chat. All right. I'm hoping you guys got as much out of this that I did. Laura says, hi from Vancouver. Oh, nice to have you. Welcome from Vancouver. We have Robbie Burns coming in saying, you're not showing us live, JB. Uh-oh. Oh, he says now it's good. Okay. Thank you so very much. Dime Store Fire Marshal Bill. Let me show you something. Says love and fire. Good to see you. Layers of Snark says you're easier to control as a robot. Oh, yeah, Layers of Snark. You got it. You got it. Traveler's Wolf says, I listened to one Sam Cedar podcast. Now it's all that YouTube recommends. Oh no, Travelers. Oh no. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Press Coop says, instead, utter critical stupidity abounds and is displayed by those who legitimize the oligarchy's biggest con, the electoral system in which third parties can act as system gatekeepers and sheepdogs. Thank you for that. Let's continue. I'm addicted to iPad money. You got some of that iPad money, dog? I need some of that iPad. Great team. So good to see you in the Chizat. Oh, yeah. We got great team up in here. Jayasaki. Indeed. Good to see you. All one thing says thank you, JB. I really needed to hear today's message so I may apply them to my family situations. Oh, yeah. Look, I'm trying to apply this to myself and my family as well. You know, the kindness factor is the world, the system is unkind. People are kind, but the system is unkind and it influences us to be less kind, right? And so we have to start with ourselves and then extend that to everybody else, right? So being kind to ourselves also means what is the healthier option for us when we eat? What we consume, what we're watching. Are we constantly doom scrolling? Are we being kind to our minds and our hearts? That's important too. Sometimes being kind to ourselves is by reflecting that onto others so that it reflects back to you, right? I think that's an important thing. And kindness sometimes means standing up for yourself and standing up for your fellow workers. Kindness may mean doing that too. Kindness also may mean following your conscience so that you are kind to others, and then in turn, your heart, when your conscience is clear, that's your heart congratulating you. That's your heart putting a crown on your head saying, baby, you did it. Be kind to yourself. Zoe says you have to be great on your own worst day and outstanding on every other day. My Caribbean parents. But what does that greatness involve? We got to talk about that. Sarcastic Mystic says, I was told growing up that I was lazy. As it turns out, people usually say that to a kid when they're not doing their work for them. Hmm. Yep. Mm. Laura says, after Rabbit says to Pooh he should do nothing because that's what he's best at, Pooh responds by saying, it's good to know you're good at something even though it's nothing. Oh, bother. Hmm. Oh yeah, all one saying GDP seen as productive, yet it contains weapons industry. Yeah, absolutely. Joseph Bet says, yes, that's me, number one. Good to see you, Joseph. Yeah. Yeah, I think if you guys can go to your public library and check out Laziness Does Not Exist and read it on your own time, I highly recommend. Jacqueline, good to see you. Jacqueline says, hi, everyone. Good to see you. All right. Bad Cookies is in here. Bad Cookies is really a good cookie. They just don't want you to know they're a good cookie. But Bad Cookies is a good cookie. All right. Oh, Joseph Bet says, I feel stressed on my days off because I have to rush to get my errands done for my next work week. If I rush, I can get 4 or 5 hours of free time for myself. I think we should have more than 2 days off. Because on our days off, we're actually still working. Right? Cleaning your house is work. Running errands is work. When do we actually get time to take off for ourselves? We don't. Especially parents. They're always working. Yeah. Jacqueline said, miss most of this. Have to watch the playlist as well to get the playlist of all the other books that JB has read. Yeah, if you guys want to, it's on the playlist as well. Jacqueline says, of course, I'm finding it hard to figure out what worth Biden, Sunak, and Netanyahu have apart from the monetary worth, that is. They're harming the world with their policies. Robbie Burns asks, hey, James, how are you doing? Status update. I'm doing okay. We're still looking at different places right now. It's kind of hard because a lot of the places that we're looking at, we have to a lot of places that we're looking into, we have to they charge an application fee. So unfortunately, we have to do that. So unfortunately, with that, it's a challenge because then you have to pay for the application fees, and you have to be very selective. It's not like you can just apply everywhere. So that's one of the barriers. So you have to be very picky and choosy. You have to figure out which place you can afford and all that. So it's slower. It's not like applying for a job. So thank you. Deborah Grossbach says, thank you for sharing this book, JB. Your added commentary and analysis is invaluable. Oh, thank you so much, Deborah. Appreciate it very much. All right. Oh, you're sweet. Thank you so much. Mr. Meepsor says, Bertrand Russell's In Praise of Idleness. There's a short look at the topic. Ooh, interesting. Thank you so very much. And one of the things I hate is people go, I'll sleep when I'm dead. No, 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 no. That's another laziness lie trope. Roger Meadow says remote work on a 6-hour day reclaims time for yourself. Thank you so much for that, Roger. Good to see you in the chat too. Yeah, so application fees are a tax on renters. Hmm. Oh yeah. I said that. Oh my god! Only those who saw Nick at Night with JB knows his name means dime store fire marshal. I can't believe I said that. What the hell is wrong with me? If you guys haven't subscribed to this channel and subscribe to RBN, please make sure to do that. I'm so silly. Oh, jeez. All right. So anybody, all the people that are also in Rumble, good to see you. I don't see anybody in the chat, but good to see you as well. Just checking there. Christian Johansson Dahl says we're so productive now that we can work a 5-hour days, 30-hour week easy and still meet all the needs of production. The only problem is having salary that gives us a good and worthy life to live. Yes. Yes. Appreciate it. Thank you so very much. So with that being said, I'm going to head on out. I have to get ready to go because I'm over 20 minutes beyond what I wanted to. But just to let you guys know, now that I'm done with this, I'm going to be going into my next book. It hasn't come in yet, but the hell with it. I'm going to announce it now. I'm going to be reading Prejudicial by Margaret Kimberly. We're going to be getting into that book. And yes, Margaret Kimberly has been a guest on this channel before. I cannot wait. And so I hope to, once I finish reading the book, I'm also going to try to have Margaret Kimberly on to discuss her book as well, because I think that's important. We also need to give our flowers to the authors that are alive and the ones that are still doing good work on the ground. So I cannot wait. And plus, it's from a Black woman's perspective. And God, I can't wait. So it's going to be great. Also, if you guys have not, I'm going to continue the reading of Water in the Spirit by Melodon and Patrice Sommet. This is a great book. I cannot wait to get into that. Also, we're going to get into the rest of the reading of The Will to Change by Bell Hooks, Men, Masculinity, and Love. Yes, we're going to get into continuing the reading of that. If you guys would like to get into the readings of any other books that I have, just go into the playlist and you guys will see readings, and then it tells the title of the book. I've done a book by Michael Parenti. I've done, Blood in My Eye by George Jackson is exclusively on Rockfin, so you guys can go ahead on there to read that. I've also read Assata Shakur's autobiography. So yes, there's a lot. So if you guys have not already, you guys can go there and you guys can see that playlist there as well. So I just, I'm getting through these books and I'm so happy that I am getting through them. So thank you so very much to everybody for tuning in. Look, this book has been wonderful. I am so appreciative of Dr. Devon Price for this. If you guys have not picked up Laziness Does Not Exist, go ahead and pick it up either at a library or try to go through a bookstore that is not linked to Amazon. Please. We don't need to give more money to Dime Store Lex Luthor. But yes, go ahead and do that. Thank you so much to Dr. Devon Price for writing this book, for authoring this book. It has been cathartic for me and has been such a lens for me, a mirror for me to look at myself and see in which ways can I be kinder to myself and the people around me, as well as to my viewers too. I thank you so very much from the top and bottom of my heart for this book. I thank all of you from the top and bottom of my heart for tuning in for this final reading of this book. I hope you guys got a lot of it, just as much out of it as I did. This means a lot to me. And if you guys have not already, go ahead and like, share, subscribe. And I thank you so very much. Look, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. And leaving the world better than you found it also includes yourself. Be better to yourself than you were yesterday. Be better to the people around you than you were yesterday. Be better to the world than you were to it yesterday. I love you for watching. Mwah. Forehead kisses. And you guys have a beautiful, beautiful Saturday. Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. Forehead kisses, and have a beautiful day.